different.
Hello, this is Christelle Martinet with another Seminar 101, Cartomancy 101, and I decided to call this today Going With Your Gut. Now, I have to thank those people who have written me comments because, like I always say, they give me food for thought and they also stimulate me with new ideas, and I have a different way of seeing what I do and how I interpret people's questions. Now, what I want to start out with, first of all, is by saying, talking about the importance of meditation. When I go into a reading, even if it's just and I'm not saying just in inverted commas, I'm saying that, a weekly reading, a general reading, there's a preparation and it takes a lot of time. Thinking about which deck you would like to use, what kind of mood you're in, how you're feeling that day, the questions, many questions which have arisen from your people who have read with during the week. And you start to relax and prepare for the reading by meditating, and that takes time. And of course you set your scene, you put your things out. I call them my toys, your favorite decks, backup decks in case something goes wrong. But if you like, you could call it plan B or C. If something goes wrong, the camera falls, the entire deck falls, as has happened to me before. But the importance of meditation initially for you, your personal space, the way you prepare and the way you take time to concentrate on what you're about to do is very, very important. And this, in terms of whatever works for you, there are no ready-made solutions. Now, what is important as a message, I believe, today is that those of you who have just started taking decks in your hands, who are moved to start reading and looking at the decks, seeing what individual cards have to say to you, even by way of personal development, which it indeed is, also know that the books, the better books that are out there on the market, will always tell you, go with your gut. Go with the first thing that you feel. You can call it an intuition, you can call it your psychic abilities, you can call it anything that you like. But they do say, go with your gut. If you think the fool is telling you, giving you a sinister message, then go for it. That's what you communicate, because you were moved to do that by for some reason. And I have to say that I often, like many of you do, go back and see my videos to learn from what I've said and to see if I can get another message from that. But it's a personal growth. Now, having said that, I must say also that because you go with your gut, the reading is the reading in the moment. That fool gave you that message in that moment, and there's no other reason for that. Now let me start by saying that today I'm going to show you different cards, different decks that say completely different things, and this just to give you an idea of the importance of the deck that you choose. But ultimately, again, I'll be repeating this throughout this video. You are the person who attributes meanings to the cards that you have in your hand in the moment that you see them. I hope that this will become clear during this video. And also, I will be showing you different ways of divining. For example, as was mentioned in comments, teacups. There's a woman who I know who's very famous reader, and she reads tea leaves, and she makes her living from reading tea leaves, and she's very, very, very good. A very dear friend of mine reads coffee cups, dark black Italian coffee cups, and she turns them over and turns them around, and she's done this for me, and it's fascinating, completely fascinating. I myself have started what is called scrying. I take a basin of water, each time it's a different container of clear water, and I have a ritual about how, without going into it now, how I prepare the water. And then scrying means to look into the water and to the reflections, similar to how people would look into a crystal ball, actually, and look for, of course, there's a preparation here too, the meditative process, and look for messages that emerge. Okay, they're emerging. Now, you can do this, and you're doing this with the only eyes that you have and the only perspective that you have. This is natural. I can only see with my eyes. I cannot see with another person's eyes. I think we would all agree with that. But every moment of the day and every moment in time, I have a different perspective. If I close my eyes and open my eyes again, I see something. If I close my eyes again and open them again, I see something else. And I can count on that. And I know that, especially because my eyes, I'm very astigmatic. But joking aside, this is, philosophically speaking, is very well known in philosophy and psychology as well. Now let's get back to the different tarot decks. A new tarot deck that I had, that I just came into contact with, is the Alice Tarot that many of you may know. And also another deck that I have that is one of my favorites is the New Orleans Voodoo Tarot that I'll be showing you. And they are on opposite ends of the spectrum, but and inspired, of course, from different things. One, the Alice Tarot on Lewis's Carol, Alice in Wonderland, and Alice in the Looking Glass, and the Voodoo Tarot, the New Orleans Voodoo Tarot from the Voodoo culture in New Orleans. Now, many people say that's not even a tarot deck. I tend to disagree, sorry. And let's take, for example, the Alice card. Now, the Alice card, let me show you a card that is very well known, the Nine of Cups. The Nine of Cups, we would all say that it is a wish card. Your wishes will become true, becoming true. It is a yes card. You ask a question, it comes out, and you say, yes, the answer is yes, okay? Now, in this card, which basically tells us to be careful what you wish for, and it also serves the purpose of telling us, reminding us that in the story, this is what Alice witnesses as she's leaving the tea party. Now, in the picture, the March Hare and the Hatter have decided to push the Dormouse into the teapot, which looks even cruel, but they are actually doing him a favor because he will sleep better that way. And so we would imagine that the Dormouse is getting his wish. But, of course, you have to remember, to many, to Alice, to me, and to many, it seems nonsensical. However, it also does serve another purpose, both to the Hare and the Hatter. They're for fulfilling their wish because they can't stand the Dormouse. So it is quite a complex message here, but basically there is the underlying message of fulfilling a wish. Now, unless you are in tune with Lewis Carroll's stories, this may never come to surface. This may never surface as a message. Another card from that deck, the Eight of Wands, the Shooting Wands, these two figures rushing off, the Queen of Wands and Alice just rushing off. So that gives you a question of speed. The world in this deck is very mild in my eyes. It doesn't give us the satisfaction of being such a, in my eyes again, such a coming full circle and appeasing, being happy that you have finally come a long way. And again, the Chariot, which is another card that many of us know who work with tarot. The Chariot usually is telling us that it's a forward movement. It may be a card of impatient speed as well, but also unexpected journeys. And it could also give us an idea of forward movement and backward movement. But here we have a strange train. There's Alice, who seems a bit disoriented and bored almost, and she's surrounded by a motley bunch there. There's a gentleman dressed in a white newspaper, a goat, there's the beetle, and a gnat. Basically what this card is giving us the impression of is psychological and physical movement. So there's the duality here, both a physical movement and a psychological movement. It depends on your eyes, what you see, and in the company of other cards. That's just, of course it is. But also, this card talks about moving on and about taking control and focusing on your aims. And not many decks will give you that that card, that message. And this is in that deck, the Fool card, just about going down into the rabbit hole, which is probably a very clear message for those of us who know the story. And it's a moment of adventure. Also, but we have to remember, she begins her dream. So there's the duality again. This whole deck works on duality, two different meanings, as all decks really do, and I firmly believe that. Then let's see, another question has come up. Can I read for myself? I often am asked, do you read for yourself? Are you able to read for yourself? And I answer, well, yes and no. I would love to, but I have my readers. I have several different readers that I trust, and I go from one to another. But for example, the Lenormand, let me bring up the Lenormand cards, and I'll use that as an example. The Lenormand card, there are very many different Lenormand cards, and I have a few decks here. And one of the decks, this is a Lenormand deck with it has a number there. The only thing I don't like about this is that it doesn't have the actual playing card on it. It just has the number, and it gives you a little rhyme to remember the meaning. And I guess this might be serve a purpose for people who start. Just to give you an example, I'm reading the birds cards. The bird card that says, the birds mean grief but remain in good cheer. Woes will be brief when the birds disappear. If this card is found far distant from you, a voyage is bound to loom into view. Now, this of course means that we have to stop, look at the reading, and it does distract from concentration. And it is very much a message of concentration that I'm trying to say. When I do even the the weekly readings for everyone, it's a matter of concentration, and it takes a long time to prepare for that, to get that concentration. I clean the air in the area of where I have to read for you, and I use different ways of cleaning that. I won't go into that now, but also the concentration is such that you give it your 20 minutes, your 15 minutes, your 25 minutes, whatever that is. Once it's over, you can relax. I do other things, and then the concentration is no longer there. And when I get questions, it's very, very difficult for me to go back because the moment has changed, and readers know that. And if you're not a reader, maybe you would like to go into that. But let me ask, we were talking about reading for yourself. I'll give you this example. In many Lenormand card books, in many readers will tell you this, there's, apart from meditation, it's very important how you charge the cards. By charging the cards means, it means how you attribute meaning to certain cards. And I'll give you an example. This card is the bear in the Lenormand cards, and it means stability, dependability, reliability, and stable, something stable and strong. And it could mean also gaining weight. So there's a lot of different meanings. And you attribute the meaning to this card depending on what you want to know. So when and if that card comes out, you read it in a certain way for that specific reading, for that specific purpose, and for that specific question and person. Now, the example that I'll give you is a grand tableau. Let's say I myself am opening a grand tableau spread, which is, I like to use, 9 rows of 4 rows of 9 cards. There are 36 cards in the deck. 4 rows of 9 cards, and they each have a position. Those of you who work with Lenormand cards will know what I'm talking about. And my question is, for the next, towards the end of the year, let's say by the end of this year, I'd like to know, I have 3 men in my life, let's say. A person who means stability to me, a former lover, a person who is in my mind all the time, a current lover, and a younger man who occasionally I see, but has a role in my life. Now, these are 3 people who are important to me, but I'd like to know what their roles will be and how the year will play out towards the end, throughout until the end of the year. We're in the beginning of April, the end of March, towards December. So what do? I use the bear. I have used the bear before, and I have attributed meaning to this bear as meaning the former lover, but a person who's very important in my life, a confidant, almost a relative, a brother, a father, someone who I confide in and someone who I speak to all the time. That is the bear. Then I use the man, this handsome devil here, as the 35 to 50, okay? A man who is about 40 to 50, let's say that, who's in my life and has a certain role today, or is in my mind in any case, and that will be the man. And I've separated it in age groups, and this is the rider, the horseman, and in this spread that I'm about to open, will be the younger man, under 35, that is in my life and has a purpose and serves a purpose today. I'd like to know what their purpose, what their role will be, if any, in by the end of the year. Now, that's as far as reading for myself and reading the Lenormand cards and charging cards with certain meaning. Now, I can do that, and I can read for myself if I use a grand tableau and it's numbered and it's more objectively, in inverted commas, based on a numerical value and their positioning in the spread. And it's a more complicated spread, and it will, my reading of the cards will be, in inverted commas, more objective. I remain and stand by the idea that I only can use my eyes, my ears, and my senses Now, having said that, let's go on to another example of other decks and meanings. I've used these cards before. This is the first deck, as I mentioned once. This is the first deck I've ever had in my hand. It's the Sherman-Gargiulo artist work in this Rose Tarot, Sacred Rose Tarot. Now, I've chosen these cards for a purpose. This is Justice. This is the Justice card. And in this card, there is the woman with the blindfold, which I don't particularly like, because I like the symbolism and metaphor of seeing and not seeing. And in this card, it has a different meaning, as it has in this card, which is the Lover's card, where there are only two here persons, and it doesn't give you an idea of choice that typically and traditionally the Lover's card will give you. And there also is a blindfold on the eagle's eyes in the back, and this too, it gives you the impression of the Cupid in other decks and how love is blind. And for me, it doesn't give me enough information. It doesn't spur me on to thinking of other things. I stopped for a moment there because it made me think of the Lover's card in another deck, in the Alice deck. For example, the Alice deck is unique in that there are two Lover's cards. One is, one is one and the other is the other. And I can't find them now, but what I will say about them is one gives you an image with two male characters in the deck, in the story. And it can signify a like gender relationship. And then there's another card with two swans whose necks are intertwined, and that as a universal symbol of love, perhaps, where in the background there is another swan in the distance, and it gives you the impression of a possible choice. Now let me go to another card here, this Hermit card, which the negative part for me as the Hermit card is the darkness of it and going and hiding, which in reality is not only the meaning that I attribute to the Hermit card. The Hermit card for me means meditation and spirituality, regrouping, taking time then to think again. Now, one other deck let me show you those compared to this deck. This is from an old Marseille Tarot that I use very, very often. I love, which is completely different from any of the decks, because unlike the Rider-Waite, these are not, in inverted commas, tainted. They don't have an indication of what to say, how to interpret it. This is the Nine of Cups again, and as you can see, there's no indication of it being the Wish card, except that they're so perfectly one on top of another, and what could you ask for more? The three universal number, and there's so many religious meanings, and three every which way is always three. There's the three diagonal, the perfectness, see? Now, also, there's the Four of Pentacles that is here, quite a different meaning from other card decks, tarot decks. This is the Phoenix arising from its ashes. This is a new beginning. And other tarot decks tell you that it's a miserly, guarding your fortunes, miserly card, quite different. This leads a little more to an open interpretation, depending on the moment and your concentration, the question, the client, everything. And here, this is the Ace of Wands, which is a phallic symbol, granted, but it also is a gift. You can see the hand there. It may come out as a yes to you. It may come out as a gift, a spiritual gift to you. It may come out as a sexual gift. There are many, many different ways you can read this, and that again is a richness. It gives you different levels on your reading. Now I'll go to a deck that I absolutely love, which is the New Orleans Tarot deck and the Voodoo Tarot deck, and I'll give you two different cards. One is the Gobo Nosh, the large, the great angel, and it looks like a sun card, huh? And another is a wild card. It's a wild card, and it's Les Barons. It's the barons. Now the Gobo Nosh is quite an interesting card. Outside the city with its entertainment and diversion, let's see if I can paint the picture for you. There's darkness. The darkness holds the land and solitude. Darkness gives a message. It gives you time to think and close yourself off. And you start to think, well, who is that person under the lights, under the windows? What are they doing there? And your mind strays during the night. The night, this is a time of magic. And this is a time when the secret societies take to the streets. Okay? And with the coming of light, with the sunrise, the magic of the night settles, and it becomes more of a regular pattern, and day becomes a time for a community, other people involved. And as the sun shines both on the good and the bad. And like love, the sun is unconditional. So this really is a message of love. And it's a message also of the aspect of this card is one of great energy, dynamic movement, energy, spiritual life through the power of love and unity. And it unites dualities, night and day, okay? As in a mirror process, and as in opposites, we say opposites that attract, and as in the invisible world that you cannot see at night. It reflects the visible world. And what I like to use is the word reflectively. It's a reflective process. And the moon also has that capacity. Now, for many people, these cards seem to be scary, and I now will be talking about a topic that many don't like to hear, but it's part of life. And the barons. The meaning of the barons. The barons are, in this culture, they belong to and lead the family of the Geda. I won't go, the Geda spirits, I don't have time to go into it. But they're not spirits of the dead, but it is the spirit of death itself. Now, what do they mean? They signify irreverent humor, what we would call black humor, and they signify sex and death, which is an odd combination to many, but there are many combinations. There's many connecting ideas between sex and death, and I'm sure you've heard of this before. Now the story is about the barons, right? The aspect of this card is about the barons climbing the steps of the French Quarter and going to the French Quarter police station as part of a projected, what they have, Day of the Dead celebration in New Orleans. And the police station, of course, signifies security and safety. And the death is a sort of a clownish image that pierces let's put it that way, it brings down all of the vanities. I'm reminded of the bestseller novel, The Bonfire of the Vanities. It pierces all the vanities. And there's a sense of humor that pulls you. All right, this is the culture, is the New Orleans culture behind these cards. It's as if there were a sense of humor that pulls you through dire circumstance. Almost as if the message here is, you're bad off. Think of those who are worse off than you. And so there's quite a different culture there. I'll just give you a few, just to give you a view of some of these, a picture of some of these cards. These are by far probably my most favorite, but there's the culture is so far, well, it's quite distant from Western culture, and I couldn't do this for a weekly reading. But one more thing. As I was talking about scrying and the different card decks, I met very recently, a few weeks ago, I met a card reader here, and she gave me, this woman, as I was saying, the reader who I had met gave me an interesting idea. She is an artist, and as an artist, she has accumulated many different things, and in her readings, she has put aside a series of postcards, and she pulled a postcard for me. And of course, her sensitivity to art allows her to then read into the artwork and portray and convey a message. Now, this is just to show you that you can, if your sensitivities allow you, read anything. And to give you an idea, I've taken 5 photographs that were more or less the same size. So ideally, if you're picking them out, you cannot recognize one from the backs if they're all the same size. So that, I guess that is the anonymity in choice of something that can serve as cards. All right, let me give you, I've taken these, okay, and I'll show you one. All right, now let's say if this card was drawn, I would say that the meaning potential could go from anywhere that a time is needed to take care of people who are weaker than you, of the weaker, or to show kindness to those, to others. This could be one and several meanings, and or something like this, which could possibly mean to show your appreciation and for your blessings, for what you have received, for any of your gifts. I hope he made you laugh. Or something like this. This photo robbed when they were sleeping. You could say something to the effect that it's not a time to take decisions. Wait it out, meditate until something emerges. Since there are 2 figures of opposite ages, you could even have that come into play in your interpretations. Or something like this, there are 2 figures, and you can think of a moment of balance, and this is portrayed because one of the figures is smiling and the other is not, and they are in the middle of a photograph, and around them there are people who are of all ages, and all in all this could give an idea of harmony and being well centered. A moment of balance then. Or something like this, where there's something missing there, the head is cut off, and the foot here is cut off. And you could possibly take this to mean that something is missing in your life, or you perceive that something is missing, and or you feel that you need grounding. Okay, now these are humorous examples, but that do give you an idea. And what I guess the underlying message is that you have to really know yourself and your strengths and your weaknesses if you're going to be in a position of reading for others. Because You can gauge your reactions to symbols. For example, if I see a card that has all different hues of blues and it reminds me of my grandmother's eyes, I take that as a message, an underlying message that she used to give me, for example. Or similar things can be said. If something comes into your mind at that moment. I, for one, for example, am drawn to the unknown. I'm drawn to learning, and so things like the New Orleans Voodoo Tarot is intriguing for me for what it can give me in terms of learning, and this is extended to everything in my life, relationships, what I can learn from people, and you can almost call that an egotistic, of course, an egotistic meaning, an egotistic reaction. I want to go towards that person because I could learn something for myself, about myself, okay? So the idea of this video is that going with your gut is the fundamental thing that you have to bear in mind when you choose a deck, when you choose who to read for, when you may not want to read, and they may not be able to read for everyone because you've perceived negative energies that will undermine your work, for example. And choose anything that works for you. Even the places you go need to speak to you in some way. You need to resonate with them before you can extend yourself, because you're extending yourself. That's enough. It's been too long. Thank you so much for for joining me and for staying this far. I appreciate it, and also for your likes, your shares, and the new subscribers. Welcome. Please do subscribe if you enjoy these videos, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye, and have a pleasant day.